Welcome to today's talk. We're going to explore one of the most powerful tools you have at your disposal. The ability to educate yourself, not once, not occasionally, but every single day. The human brain is wired for learning. It thrives on challenge, grain, adapts through repetition, and grows stronger through consistent, intentional effort. Great pain. In a world that's evolving faster than ever before, great pain. Awaiting for formal education or ideal conditions to learn is no longer an option. The truth is, you can train your brain to become a learning sharper, more curious, and more resilient with each passing day. Pain. Today, I'll break down the science steps that you can use daily to feed your brain, harness your focus, great pain, and build long-term knowledge and skills. No matter your age, background, or current level, these steps are rooted in neuroscience, biology, and psychology. And when practiced regularly, they not only build to your learn, but reshape how you think, decide, and grow. So whether you're a student, a professional, or someone just starting their journey of self-education, this is your roadmap to unlocking your full cognitive potential. Educating yourself every day begins with designing a consistent daily learning schedule aligns with your body's natural circadian rhythm. Great pain. The human brain does not operate at the same level of alertness or cognitive capacity throughout the day. Research shows that our ability to focus, retain information, pain, and think critically is heavily influenced by biological rhythms regulated by the brain, specifically the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus. Aligning your learning activities with your body's peak mental performance periods can dramatically enhance the effectiveness of daily self-education. Great pain. For most people, the brain's peak alertness occurs about 90 to 120 minutes after waking, when cortisol levels are naturally elevated, promoting attention and mental energy. This is an ideal time to engage in deep work, absorb complex concepts, or tackle subjects that require analytical thinking. Structuring your most demanding educational tasks during this window allows you to capitalize on your brain's heightened focus and processing speed. Another cognitive peak often occurs in the late afternoon or early evening, which is better suited for reviewing material. Great pain. Engaging in creative thinking or connecting concepts learned earlier in the day. Understanding and respecting these natural performance windows can transform the way you structure your day for optimal learning. Beyond choosing the right time, creating consistency in your schedule is vital. The brain thrives on repetition and patterns. By dedicating a specific time each day to learning either great pain, you create a predictable neural routine that signals the brain to prepare for focused engagement, great pain. This routine over time strengthens the brain's capacity for sustained attention and makes learning feel less effortful and more automatic. Minimizing distractions during these scheduled periods is equally essential. Dopamine, pain neurotransmitter central to motivation and reward, plays a key role in helping you stay focused and driven while learning. Every time you get distracted by notifications, social media, or multitasking, dopamine signaling becomes fragmented, either great pain, making it harder to remain immersed in the learning process. Protecting your environment during your scheduled learning time trains your brain to associate that space and time with focused effort, increasing your productivity and mental endurance. Furthermore, it's critical to begin each learning session with a clear intention. Before diving into reading, watching, or practicing something new, take 30 seconds to set a goal, what you aim to understand, achieve, or remember. Pain. This activates the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for goal-directed behavior, helping prioritize attention and filter out irrelevant information. As your schedule becomes routine, pain, the act of showing up consistently sends powerful feedback to your brain's reward system. Over time, this strengthens the dopaminergic pathways that make learning feel intrinsically satisfying rather than forced or tedious. This consistency, combined with biological alignment and clear intention, primes the brain for high-quality learning. Using focused learning blocks followed by deliberate rest periods is a strategy deeply rooted in neuroscience and supports the brain's natural capacity for learning and memory, either great pain. Consolidation. The human brain is not designed to maintain peak concentration indefinitely. Instead, either great pain, it works in cycles of heightened focus followed by necessary recovery. One of the most effective techniques supported by research is the ultradian rhythm, which consists of 90-minute cycles of alertness followed by dips in energy. By structuring your learning time into blocks of about 45 to 90 minutes of intense, distraction-free focus, followed by 10 to 15 minutes of rest, you optimize your brain's ability to absorb and retain information. During focused blocks, the brain's prefrontal cortex is highly active, allowing for deliberate concentration, problem solving, and the encoding of new knowledge. To maximize this time, great pain, it's important to eliminate distractions entirely, turning off notifications, creating a quiet environment, either great pain, and keeping your learning goals visible to stay mentally aligned, great pain. This focused effort activates what neuroscientists call the task-positive network, which is responsible for deep pain, goal-oriented thinking. This network helps suppress the default mode network, which is more active during daydreaming or mind wandering. Suppressing distraction and staying locked into a specific cognitive task enhances neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire and form new synaptic connections, either great pain. Immediately following these focused blocks, the brain benefits from deliberate periods of rest, either great pain. This doesn't mean switching to social media or jumping into another task, but rather allowing the brain to go into a relaxed state. Activities like walking, closing your eyes, deep breathing, or pain, or staring out the window without stimulation engage the default mode network, pain, which is essential for connecting newly learned information with existing knowledge, great pain. It's during this time that the brain starts the process of memory consolidation, transferring short-term learning into longer-term storage by strengthening neural pathways. Incorporating these rest periods is not wasted time. It is when some of the most powerful cognitive processing happens. Studies show that when individuals try to push through fatigue and skip rest, their ability to recall information drops significantly, and their attention becomes more fragmented. Over time, pain, working in this unfocused state, can actually train the brain to become more distractible. On the other hand, allowing rest reinforces the brain's reward circuits and reduces mental fatigue, improving motivation and cognitive resilience. This rhythm of focused work and resto supports better emotional regulation. As mental energy is expended during learning, cortisol and adrenaline levels rise. Strategic rest lowers these stress hormones, rebalancing the nervous system and preparing the brain for another round of focus. This cyclical approach not only improves memory and attention, but trains the brain to function in harmony with its natural processes, pain. In the long term, this trains the learner to better tolerate cognitive stress, enhances their self-awareness of mental fatigue, and builds the capacity for sustainable deep learning. Engaging multiple senses to reinforce neuroplasticity And retention is a powerful way to optimize the learning process and create stronger, longer-lasting memories. The human brain learns best when information is presented through a variety of sensory channels: visual, auditory, tactile, and even kinesthetic. This is because different sensory inputs are processed in distinct regions of the brain, and activating multiple areas simultaneously strengthens neural connectivity. When you engage more than one sense, pain, during learning, you increase the likelihood of deeper encoding, which makes it easier to retrieve the information later. Either great pain. For example, reading a textbook silently uses visual processing, but reading it aloud adds an auditory component, stimulating the auditory cortex. Writing notes by hand involves tactile feedback, activates motor regions of the brain. If you illustrate a concept through diagrams or mind maps, you further involve spatial and visual processing areas. Great pain, watching a video while simultaneously taking notes or repeating key points engages both the auditory and motor systems. Great pain, deepening the connection between sensory inputs and cognitive understanding. This multisensory involvement enriches the experience and makes it easier for the brain to pattern and remember the information. Neuroscientific studies show that information learned through multiple sensory modalities results in higher activation of the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, areas associated with learning and memory. For example, students who combine visual aids with verbal explanations retain more knowledge over longer periods than those who rely on one sense alone. Pain. When senses work together, the brain builds a more robust mental model of the material, and this model becomes more resilient to forgetting either pain. The key idea is that the more neural circuits involved in learning something, the more access points the brain has to retrieve it later, either pain. Another advantage of multisensory learning is its ability to combat cognitive fatigue and boredom. Pain. Switching between sensory modalities can keep the brain engaged and make extended learning sessions feel more dynamic. For example, after reading a passage from a book, watching a short video on the same topic or explaining it aloud to someone else not only reinforces memory, but also refreshes your engagement. Incorporating movement, like pacing while reviewing flashcards or performing gestures while explaining a process, can also help activate procedural memory systems. Great pain. This physical involvement links the body to the brain's cognitive map of learning, either great pain. Incorporating sensory variety also allows the learner to discover their most effective learning style, either pain. Some people absorb information better through visual representation, while others find listening or speaking more impactful. By experimenting with different combinations, such as drawing, summarizing aloud, listening to podcasts, or building models, learners can find which blend of sensory engagement enhances their retention and understanding the most. Furthermore, the act of converting information from one sensory form to another, for example, turning text into a drawing or explaining a diagram verbally, forces deeper cognitive processing and leads to greater conceptual clarity. This process of sensory translation not only helps solidify what is being learned, but also trains the brain to acknowledge more flexibly in different situations and contexts. Applying active recall and spaced repetition for long-term memory is one of the most powerful techniques grounded in neuroscience. Techniques grounded in neuroscience to retain information more effectively, either great pain. Active recall involves retrieving information from memory without looking at the source, forcing the brain to engage more deeply with the material, either grain. This mental effort strengthens neural pathways and makes future recall easier and more reliable. Pain. Unlike passive review, such as rereading or highlighting, active recall requires the brain to reconstruct knowledge, pain, which enhances memory consolidation and improves learning outcomes. When the brain works to great pain, retrieve something, it activates the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, which are either great pain, which are central to encoding and organizing memories. Spaced repetition complements active recall by leveraging the brain's natural forgetting curve. The forgetting curve, first identified by Hermann Ebbinghaus, shows that memory retention declines over time unless the material is revisited at strategically increasing intervals. S-spaced repetition counters this by reviewing information just as it is about to be forgotten, a great pain, which strengthens the memory trace and embeds it more firmly into long-term storage. This spacing effect trains the brain to treat the information as important and worthy of preservation, thereby increasing the likelihood that it will remain accessible over weeks, months, and even years. The synergy between active recall and spaced repetition lies in how they both promote desirable difficulty. This concept refers to the idea that learning which feels more challenging often leads to better retention because it forces deeper cognitive engagement. Pain, quizzing yourself, writing summaries from memory, teaching the concept to someone else, or using flashcards without looking at the answers are all forms of active recall that increase mental effort and enhance memory formation when these strategies are spaced over time. First after a few hours, then a day later, then a few days, either great pain, then a week. The information is revisited at points when the brain has to work to remember it, which reinforces learning more effectively than massed practice or cramming. Modern tools and platforms such as Anki or Quizlet are designed to apply spaced repetition algorithms by adjusting the intervals between reviews based on how well the learner recalls each item. These systems optimize review timing so that difficult items are shown more frequently while easier ones are spaced further apart. This efficient approach to study management minimizes time wasted on overlearning material that is already well known while ensuring that weaker areas receive more attention. Importantly, this method not only supports academic learning, but is applicable to any area of self-education, from language learning to technical skills or conceptual understanding. Pain. Implementing active recall and spaced repetition into daily learning routines also builds metacognitive awareness. By consistently testing what you know and recognizing what you don't, you become better at monitoring your understanding and adjusting your learning strategy. This improves focus, motivation, and self-direction over time. The brain becomes more adept at forming durable knowledge networks. Pain, reducing the need for relearning and making learning a more cumulative and rewarding process. This habit creates a loop of continual reinforcement, great pain, allowing each new knowledge to be more easily connected with existing frameworks, which ultimately leads to more flexible and adaptive thinking. Incorporating movement and exercise to enhance cognitive flexibility is a science-backed approach to improving learning, memory, and overall brain performance. Pain, physical activity, is not just beneficial for the body. It is one of the most effective tools for stimulating neuroplasticity. Pain, the brain's ability to change and adapt based on experience. When you engage in physical movement, especially aerobic exercise like walking, cycling, or running, the brain experiences a surge of blood flow, oxygen, and nutrient delivery. This increased circulation enhances the function of brain structures critical for learning, particularly the hippocampus, which is directly involved in memory formation and spatial navigation. Exercise also stimulates the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, often referred to as fertilizer for the brain. BNF supports the survival of existing neurons and encourages the growth of new ones, especially in areas responsible for learning and higher order thinking. By increasing the presence of BDNF, movement boosts the brain's capacity to form neural connections, improve synaptic strength, and recover from mental fatigue more effectively. This makes the brain more adaptable, more resilient to stress, great pain, and more capable of integrating new information. In addition to enhancing memory and learning, movement plays a key role in improving cognitive flexibility, the ability to switch between different ideas, adapt to new tasks, and think creatively. Regular physical activity has been shown to increase the connectivity between various brain networks, including the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for executive functions such as decision making, problem solving, either great pain, and attention regulation. This heightened connectivity allows for more fluid transitions between tasks, either great pain, better control over impulsive behavior, and more efficient problem-solving skills. One powerful yet simple technique to enlarge physical activity for before-after focused learning sessions. A brisk walk before studying can prime the brain for focus, either great pain, while movement afterward can aid in memory consolidation and creative integration of the material, great pain. Movement breaks during study sessions also help reset attention, reduce mental fatigue, and support sustained cognitive performance. These breaks do not need to be intense. A few minutes of stretching, standing, or walking can provide significant benefits in restoring concentration and improving mood. Moreover, pain, incorporating coordination-based movement activities such as dance, martial arts, or certain sports challenges the brain to process complex sequences, respond to changes in the environment, and integrate multiple sensory inputs. This type of movement enhances cross-hemispheric communication in the brain, strengthening both logical and creative functions. It supports better reaction times, greater pattern recognition, and more effective learning in dynamic, real-world contexts. Physical activity also helps regulate key neurotransmitters such as dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine, all of which influence mood, attention, and motivation. An optimal balance of these chemicals creates a brain environment conducive to alertness and sustained interest in learning. When the body is active, stress levels typically decline and the nervous system shifts toward a more balanced, pain-focused state that promotes learning and emotional resilience. By linking movement with mental effort, great pain, the brain begins to associate physical energy with cognitive vitality, building a sustainable foundation for daily education and long-term brain health. And reflecting and teaching what you learn to solidify neural connections is one of the most effective ways to transform passive knowledge into active mastery. Either great pain, when you reflect on what you've learned, your brain engages in a process called consolidation, great pain, during which short-term memories are transferred into long-term storage. This process is enhanced when you deliberately recall, organize, and mentally process the material, great pain, giving your brain a chance to strengthen the neural pathways associated with that information. Reflection doesn't just mean thinking about what you read or watched. It involves analyzing how the information fits into your existing mental framework, how it connects with prior knowledge, and how it could be applied in real-world scenarios when you take the time to summarize what you've learned at the end of a study session. You actively engage the prefrontal cortex, the brain's center for reasoning, critical thinking, and decision making. Writing down key takeaways, journaling about what made the material meaningful or difficult, or simply asking yourself questions like, what did I learn today? Or how does this concept relate to something I already know? Creates deeper connections within the brain. Great pain. These reflection practices allow the brain to categorize, tag, and link new information to existing cognitive maps, making retrieval faster and more intuitive in the future. What you've learned amplifies this effect by requiring you to reconstruct information in a clear and coherent way. The act of explaining a concept to another person, even if that is imaginary or symbolic, forces you to clarify your thoughts, identify gaps in understanding, and reinforce accurate information. This process is known in psychology as the protection effect, which shows that learners who teach others recall more great pain, understand better, and retain knowledge longer than those who only study for themselves. Teaching transforms the learner into an active participant in the learning process and strengthens metacognitive skills. Awareness of one's own learning progress and strategy. Effectiveness teaching also involves translation, either pain, taking abstract or complex material and making it understandable to someone else. Great pain. This not only challenges the brain to reframe ideas from different angles, but also promotes cognitive flexibility and creativity. Either pain, teaching can be done in various ways. Through conversation, creating a presentation, recording a short video, or writing a blog or social media post about what you've learned. These methods not only benefit the learner, but can also inspire and educate others, creating a ripple effect of knowledge sharing and intellectual growth. Another benefit of reflecting and teaching is emotional reinforcement, either great pain. When you articulate what you've learned and witness the impact it has, either by achieving clarity, receiving feedback, or helping someone else, it reinforces the brain's reward system. This positive reinforcement increases dopamine levels, which strengthens motivation and deepens learning. Over time, this practice conditions the brain to associate learning with personal growth, purpose, and satisfaction. Great pain, making daily self-education more meaningful and sustainable. When integrated into your routine, a great pain, reflection, and teaching serve as tools not just for retention, but for transforming raw information into applied wisdom and long-term personal development.